Funding for NJ Spotlight News provided by the members of the New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. New Jersey Realtors, the voice of real estate in New Jersey. More information is online at njrealtor.com. And Orsted, committed to delivering clean, reliable, American-made energy.
Tonight on NJ Spotlight News, under the dome, it appears a budget deal is on the table at the State House, but what's in and what's been cut from the governor's multi-billion-dollar spending plan? Plus, rate hike relief, lawmakers are looking for ways to put money back in your wallet and help you stay cool this summer. Also in the hot seat, President Trump's former attorney, Emil Beauvais, is grilled by New Jersey's senior U.S. senator looking to derail his nomination to the Third Circuit Court.
Our job as a committee is not to simply rubber stamp nominees because the president nominated them. We should understand that the respect for our legal system, the respect for the rule of law is vital.
And heat standards. With summer temperatures soaring, the fight for better working conditions for day laborers and factory workers.
Heat deaths are entirely preventable, but this one was not prevented. So another New Jersey worker didn't go home, and a family surely suffered unimaginably while legislators relaxed and enjoyed time with their own families.
NJ Spotlight News begins right now.
From NJPBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Venozzi.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. I'm Brianna Venozzi. We begin with a few of the headlines we're following. First, Trenton lawmakers and Governor Murphy have agreed on a budget, with final tweaks being made just days ahead of the constitutionally mandated deadline. Now, according to Senate Budget Committee Chair Paul Sarlo, both branches of the legislature and the executive office are in the final stages of negotiating last-minute changes and waiting for OLS, or the Office of Legislative Services, to write up a draft. That way it can head for a full vote. So far, we know the Budget Committee today approved several of Governor Murphy's proposed tax increases in his more than $58 billion proposed spending plan, including a tax hike on cigarettes, online sports betting, and so-called McMansions. That proposal, though, was reworked today, so the increase will kick in on homes that sell for $2 million or more instead of $1 million. Also included is a full payment to the public worker pension system and the Anchor property tax relief program. But Republicans, like Budget Officer Declan O'Scanlan, today shared frustrations with the process, saying members of the party, which is in the minority in Trenton, have yet to see the draft language or changes on a bill they're expected to vote on in just hours. Meanwhile, as part of our Under the Dome series, NorthJersey.com reporter Colleen Wilson discovered something eyebrow-raising buried in hundreds of pages of past and current budget language, a line item for millions of dollars to repay a project in the town where Senate Budget Chair Paul Sarlo also happens to be mayor. The rub? Well, the project was repaid years ago. Colleen Wilson joins me now. Colleen, thanks for coming on the show. This piece of reporting that you did, I think, was just a really good example of some of the line items that get added into these budgets at the last minute that the public and sometimes even lawmakers don't get a chance to look through. This train station in Woodridge has been getting money every year to pay back the construction, yet taxpayers are on the hook for quite a bit for it. Can you tell us what's up there?
Yeah, and I just want to add, there are a lot of items that get added to the budget last minute. This, however, is a little bit unique in that it actually is something that Governor Murphy has put in his proposed budget every year. And it's stuck around this, through the whole budget process. So this is something that he has prioritized. But yes, taxpayers have been on the hook for a lot of money that has gone to Woodridge for this specific project and development. In fact, it really hasn't gone toward the train station. It's gone toward many other projects around the train station. So that's kind of the complexity among the complexities of this particular line item.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification and just pointing that out. How much, though? How much money are they getting, and how much was the town needing to pay for this project?
So far, they've received $47.5 million. Another $10 million could be added this year. That's what's been proposed in Governor Murphy's budget. And the cost to construct the station, according to New Jersey Transit's board documents, was just under $16 million. And the portion of that Woodridge had to pay for was paid for by the developer. So again, it really comes back to this fact that state taxpayers are not paying for a train station, a New Jersey Transit train station, or the construction or the financing of that. They're really paying for all of these other projects, which Borough Administrator Chris Eilert says to me is paying for projects that couldn't get done by the developer because so much money was spent on the construction of the train station, which was split, by the way, with New Jersey Transit and a federal grant.
So in total, how much has the state spent on this municipality? I mean, because when we talk about these budgets, it's supposed to have broader impact, right? I mean, sometimes statewide impact, or at least projects that can help residents who don't just live in that specific town.
Sure. I mean, well, this project alone, $50 million just about, and about to be almost $60 million, but it untold numbers. I mean, I think I had in the story that last year, Senator Sarlo's district accrued, another several tens of millions of dollars, somewhere $30 million of worth of projects. So his district is definitely not short on receiving grants and money and appropriations for projects.
The argument, though, is right that this was an industrial site. It was contaminated. It was basically making the town's funds just bleed dry. And so without this help, the town really would be bankrupt. What was the response to that from the state and folks who were willing to talk to you quickly?
Yeah, it's a really great point. It really does add a lot of layers of context to this, that there was a massive World War II era industrial site where they were building engine parts, and then those sorts of technology and industry continued for several decades, but it contaminated the site. There was many pollutants that made it almost undevelopable. So what Mr. Eilert said to me was that the state basically told them to drop dead. They really didn't get much state assistance to bring that development in, to make that happen, to get rid of all of those pollutants, and that these, this $60 million or whatever in state taxpayer dollars basically makes up for that.
Yeah, it is interesting, though, at a time when the state is really tightening its fiscal belt. As you pointed out in your reporting, either all the lawmakers get nothing or everybody gets a little something to get them on board. Colleen Wilson for us. Colleen, great reporting as always.
Thank you.
Under the Dome is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Also tonight, the heat wave is over for now, but state lawmakers are introducing a new round of bills to upgrade New Jersey's power grid. It comes in response to rising energy prices and concerns about the grid's reliability and future. Thousands of residents lost power over the last few days while air conditioners were cranking in the brutal heat, putting extra strain on the supply network. Well, Senators Andrew Zwicker, Bob Smith, and John Berzicelli today rolled out a legislative package targeting the ways AI data centers significantly drive up electricity demand. Now, the bills direct the Board of Public Utilities to conduct a statewide study on ways to use what's known as ATT, or Advanced Transmission Technologies, which are hardware and software that boost efficiency on the grid. It also requires data centers to report energy use plans to the BPU, train New Jersey workers for jobs in grid modernization, offer incentives to redevelop shuttered power plant sites into fusion energy hubs, look into leaving grid operator PJM in favor of creating a new regional operator, and require utility companies to apply to the BPU before starting new transmission projects. Now, in a statement today, the NJBIA said it's all for investing in new technologies, but doesn't believe data centers should have any mandates to run solely on renewable energies. And in Jersey City, grief is turning to action as residents rally for safer streets following the death of a 6-year-old who was struck and killed by a delivery truck while crossing the street with his dad. In mid-June, Ellie Bender was crossing 6th Street at Jersey Avenue with a green walk signal when a UPS truck turned left, also on a green light, and failed to yield. The driver struck Bender in the crosswalk and he died minutes later. On Wednesday, neighbors, advocates, and families gathered outside City Hall for a rally led by Bike JC and Safe Streets JC. They remembered Ellie Bender, a soccer-loving kid who had just graduated from kindergarten, and urged the city to take immediate action to prevent future tragedies. During the city council meeting that followed, advocates called on officials to fully implement the city's Vision Zero. That's a plan to eliminate all traffic fatalities by 2026. They're asking for lower speed limits, more traffic enforcement, and immediate safety upgrades, especially near playgrounds and schools. Bender's death marks the 2nd fatal road accident in Jersey City this year. Congress hit a major setback today as they raced to pass President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, a massive tax and spending package. The Senate has set a self-imposed deadline to approve by July 4th. That's all while lawmakers are trying to move through other important business, like approving more of the president's nominees to top positions. This week, that included Emil Beauvais, a high-ranking Justice Department official who's been tapped to be a federal judge in New Jersey. Senate Democrats, including Senator Cory Booker, accused the judicial nominee of lying during his confirmation hearing Wednesday and said Beauvais is unfit to serve on an appeals court that represents the state. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Ben Hulak is here to shed some light on what happened. Ben, good to talk to you. Among the many things that you've been reporting on this week in particular are where we stand with this reconciliation bill. The parliamentarian apparently dealt a blow to the Senate version. Can you just give us an update on what's been happening, where things stand?
Yeah, there's a slew of moving parts at this point. The parliamentarian, as you pointed out, stripped out some big portions of the House version, I should say. At this point, the two chambers are trying to get together to mash up and blend their opposing visions into something that could become law, and that's really tricky. There is one faction of the Republican Party that wants deep cuts, as I've spoken about with you before, across the board, really. And then there's another more moderate faction that really does not want those cuts to be as deep. In particular, that group is worried about Medicaid. I spoke with Jeff Van Drew, a South Jersey Republican, on Monday, and he said, as is, he would not vote for the Senate version if it were to come back over to the House. And he estimated a sort of ballpark figure was that there were 12 Republicans in the House at that point who would not vote for it. That would be enough to tank this bill, which is, of course, the centerpiece of Donald Trump's entire agenda. And the Senate may be in for a weekend session. There's a test vote in theory scheduled for tomorrow, and then the House could come back as soon as Tuesday. But they're all rushing toward the self-imposed July 4th deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I know the president has said, no one goes on vacation until this gets done, but I was talking to Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman yesterday, and she also expressed skepticism about that timeline. What is it looking like realistically?
At this point, the Republicans don't have the votes publicly in either chamber, it seems to me. There is blowback on SALT provisions. That's a tax deduction from a lot of Republicans in the House from more moderate states, blue-tinted states politically. And the timeline is really up to the Republicans.
All right, let me switch gears quickly. The piece you wrote about for today was a pretty tough session yesterday in the Senate for a nominee for the Third Circuit, Emil Beauvais. He faced a grilling, really, particularly from our U.S. Senator Cory Booker. What's the big issue, the main issue Democrats have with his nomination?
Yeah, and Booker wasn't the only one who asked some tough questions of Beauvais. He is up for a Third Circuit appellate position that covers New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. The main issues Democrats zeroed in on, I would say, boil down to three broad things. One, Beauvais' involvement in the firing of the people who prosecuted the January 6th attacker cases, his involvement in dismissing charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, which has been described as a sort of quid pro quo. The idea being that the Trump administration would drop charges against him in exchange for favorable immigration policy from Mayor Adams. And then the third bucket is really this pattern that not only Democrats have laid out about Beauvais, but people who've worked for him. This pattern that dates back years and years of him as a really inflexible and unprofessional lawyer. I got more into it in my piece that ran this morning, but those are the broad buckets.
Yeah.
Do they have the votes to block him? Almost certainly no. They would need 4 Republicans to come on board and vote with all Democrats, assuming every Democrat votes against the Beauvais nomination, but that's the lay of the land.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a lifetime appointment. You can read Ben's reporting on this and everything coming out of the Hill on our website, njspotlightnews.org. Ben, thanks so much.
Anytime.
This week's heat wave is putting a new spotlight on the dangers of heat in the workplace. Now, New Jersey doesn't have set regulations, but the federal government this week started considering a new set of rules that'll define what constitutes workplace heat exposure. Ted Goldberg reports.
Es bastante complicado.
I have witnessed them fainting due to suffocation and extreme heat.
Working outside in 3 straight days of 100-degree heat is no picnic. Working indoors hasn't been much better for factory workers like John Poveda Lopez.
There is AC, but there's only AC in the offices, not in the plant where most of us work. And the fans that are provided, all of them are broken.
Leaders at the state and federal levels are debating heat standards for workers and what kind of protection should be given when temps get dangerously high.
We should do something about that. We should not wait for something major to happen, for example, a death, because I have seen people being asphyxiated due to the extreme heat.
According to OSHA, a 49-year-old man died last summer after suffering heat illness while pouring concrete for the foundation of these homes in Madison. Richard Kishbe was working in 90-degree heat, and his employer, Concrete and Masonry Builders LLC, received 2 citations from OSHA, one for failing to protect employees and one for failing to notify OSHA within 8 hours of his death. The company was initially fined about $8,000, but it's been reduced to $5,000 after an informal settlement. According to online records, the case is open.
Heat justice now! Heat justice now!
Make the Road New Jersey, a workers' rights group in Elizabeth, protested outside the State House last week, demanding lawmakers pass a heat standards bill that has swirled around Trenton for over a year.
Heat deaths are entirely preventable, but this one was not prevented. So another New Jersey worker didn't go home, and a family surely suffered unimaginably while legislators relaxed and enjoyed time with their own families.
From a legislative standpoint, there is great reluctance to take on the business community when the concern is that we're overregulated. But we have deaths that we can point to.
State Senator Joseph Cryan is the bill's prime sponsor and told us last summer how frustrated he was to see the bill stall.
I'm frustrated that another summer, an intense summer of heat, will go through without proper worker protections.
Richard Kishbe died less than 1 month after that interview. OSHA is considering new heat standards at the federal level that would require 15-minute breaks every 2 hours in 90-degree weather, and they're taking public comment until July 2nd. The White House can ignore those recommendations if they want, leading Cryan to make concessions to try and pass his bill.
Let's face it, this is an administration that's trying to take away health care and provide tax cuts. Their values are different. We've amended everything from the length of break to shade to exemptions for different folks so that we could get votes. I'll give you an example. Imagine picking fruit today. They're exempt under this bill under the hopes that we could particularly work with particular legislators to see if we could get their support.
Every business needs the opportunity to be flexible, especially when it comes to heat.
Alyssa Frank works for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, one of many business groups who say these proposed standards are overly onerous.
We don't think that either of them should be adopted because OSHA already has something called the General Duty Clause, which requires employers to ensure that their workers are not exposed to an unreasonable working environment.
A very relatively small percentage of employers have their own heat-related policies. And when they do have heat-related policies, their workers are reporting that they often get overshadowed by other, needs. So whether the store is short-staffed, then the policy kind of goes out the window.
Hannah Shepard is a sociology professor at Rutgers. 2 weeks ago, she published a report that asked thousands of indoor workers about heat-related illness at work. Shepard was surprised to see that nearly 2/3 of them felt uncomfortably hot or overheated at work.
We expected some reporting of heat exposure, but not nearly at the levels that we did, and across different kinds of indoor service sector workplaces.
Which included warehouses, restaurants, and retail.
We talk about the findings, people are like, that seems weird, because you assume that these big stores are, providing enough AC for their customers.
She says when it comes to protecting workers, laws are helpful, but they need proper enforcement.
Like any of these rules, they are most effective when they're getting effectively enforced. So the combination of these rules and standards with sufficient funding is sort of the best case scenario.
According to federal data, more than 2,300 people died from the effects of excessive heat in the summer of 2023, the highest number on record. While the weather is expected to cool off later this week, the debate on how to protect workers will likely stay scorching hot. For NJ Spotlight News, I'm Ted Goldberg.
Despite all its flaws, New Jersey Transit delivers a big economic bang for the state and has sweeping benefits for residents. That's the conclusion of new data released this week from the Regional Plan Association, putting a dollar value on the state's public transit system and how much it'll cost us if we fail to fund it. Senior correspondent Brenda Flanagan takes a look.
Many riders who depend on NJ Transit fumed with frustration this week as triple-digit temps caused mechanical breakdowns, cancellations, and sweat-soaked misery, even as the agency reminded customers a 3% fare hike's coming July 1st. I'm on a train with no AC and 102-degree weather, one vented on X, yet NJ Transit thinks they deserve a raise. Second price hike in a year, yet the service remains a word we can't say on TV. In Hackensack, commuters explained,
we have to have transportation in order to get back and forth from different counties and places. There's not a lot of jobs in this county. Without the public transportation, it's not worth it.
See, always, yes, I need the train because the train isn't exact the time.
The agency's customer advocate posted an apology for heat-related disruptions, and he admitted they could happen again. NJ Transit must rely on Amtrak to fix overhead power lines while it plays catch-up after years of underfunding. Meanwhile, it's riders who feel the heat as NJ Transit struggles.
That's the classic problem that transit properties have, right? There's not enough money to do the things that the customers feel. I would say it's a great loss to the state to let it struggle because it does add so much.
How much? Rachel Weinberger pointed to a new report from the Regional Plan Association. It calculates NJ Transit adds up to $13.8 billion in annual economic and social benefits statewide. That's worth more than $10,000 a year for the average New Jersey household. Plus, it reduces traffic congestion and air pollution. The report breaks it down even further for 5 different towns: Atlantic City, Bloomfield, Newark, Union City, and Hackensack, where it estimates how much living expenses would rise without NJ Transit.
Just to understand, because when you say $13 billion, I don't know about you, Brenda, but that doesn't mean anything to me. But if you said I am doubling my rent or increasing it by 50% or something like that, that's a number that I can really understand.
There are so many people that rely on transit not just because it's convenient, but because they don't have any other choice.
Alex Ambrose with NJ Policy Perspective says the report shows in hard numbers that NJ Transit functions not as a business, but as a public service that multiplies benefits in all directions.
People who use transit then have access to jobs. They have access to doctors. They have access to schools. They have access to shopping centers that without transit, they wouldn't have access to. And those places also wouldn't have access to those customers. So that multiplying factor of New Jersey Transit is essential for both our economy and for New Jerseyans' own budgets.
The report should really be mandatory reading for the legislature and the two gubernatorial candidates.
Len Restos, past president of Jersey's Railroad Passenger Association. He says NJ Transit can operate more efficiently, noting his train ticket often goes uncollected. He applauds measures like the renewed corporate transit fee that'll boost funding for the agency. But that fee expires in 5 years, and the fare box isn't enough, he warns.
When you have a system that is so unreliable, you just can't keep adding 3% each year to the burden when inflation is so high and the service is just horrible.
Transit advocates acknowledge the agency is buying new cars and engines, replacing ancient infrastructure, and just settled an engineers strike. But they add Trenton still needs to figure out a solid, dedicated funding plan to make NJ Transit a truly world-class ride. I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJ Spotlight News.
That's going to do it for us tonight, but a reminder, you can download our podcast wherever you listen and watch us anytime by subscribing to the NJ Spotlight News YouTube channel. I'm Brianna Venozzi. For the entire team at NJ Spotlight News, thank you for being with us. Have a great night. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, and by the PSCG Foundation.